Hi Stoughtonites, welcome to another episode of Lioness and You on the Watch. I'd like to take just a moment here to thank all the producers, assistant producers that helped me produce this show with all the clips I'm about to show you. So thank you, assistant producers, very much. I appreciate you. So as we begin, I want to say families and seniors alike are struggling with surging taxes. You are now responsible for 3 major debt-excluded tax increases above your annual property taxes. Leadership has made no effort to curb the spending or taxation. Despite massive revenue growth, leadership chose to place the financial burden of the South School project on you, the taxpayers, with a completely unnecessary tax hike. This revenue could have paid for the recently voted school without budget cuts or the tax increases and still had money left over. All this growth is permanent revenue and needs to benefit you, the taxpayer, with a tax cut. It should not be absorbed into an ever-exploding budget. This revenue is above and beyond level services. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. In fact, as you will see, most of the current leadership has noted all this new growth revenue as early as the fall of 2024. We have from now until this September budget season to rein in this new growth before leadership again allows the departments to start grabbing your money. We have made the investment in our town. The tax base has been expanded. Now is the time to take care of you, the taxpayers, after all the yes votes and 3 debt exclusions on your backs. You deserve a tax cut. It's a dividend for all that you have already invested. You have earned and deserve a tax cut. Together, we can solve the tax and spend problem with proper policies, a tax cut, and your support. New tax revenue needs to benefit the taxpayer with a tax cut and by reducing the need for debt-excluded tax increases for all the upcoming capital projects. Now is the time to capture some of this new money as a tax cut. After all, growth is supposed to benefit you, not endlessly contribute to an exploding budget year over year. Stoughton has abundant revenue, but it has traditionally lacked savings and has overspent. Town officials received up to a 16% increase in the upcoming 2026 budget alone. Capital projects need to be economically designed with the taxpayers in mind, not pie-in-the-sky, over-the-top designs. Here, from the DLS data, is the total budget per capita. From 2021 to 2025, the budget has increased 22%. Now, in the last 15 years, on a home value assessed at $580,000, taxes are increasing at 8 times the rate of the median income in Stoughton. Here we're going to see a graphic. This graphic is showing you our median income in Stoughton has hovered around $104,000. That's the yellow line on the graph. Now just look at the red line. That's how fast our property taxes have increased. It's 8 times the rate. And you can look up the where this information came for the median household income on the website shown on your screen. So, all our new industrial, commercial, and residential tax growth creates plenty of room for a large tax cut. How, you ask? Let me show you.
Mr. Chairman, I forgot to add this. On Thursday, and this is an open invitation to our residents, on Thursday, the 17th, we are going to have our, I guess, unofficial groundbreaking, because they're already building the buildings of the Stoughton Logistics Park. And this will be held from 11 to 1 p.m. I hope that our residents who are available could come up and take part of that. It's going to be a pretty comprehensive gathering, which will celebrate what I'm pretty darn sure is the largest single construction property in Stoughton for over 50 years. I think the only one that was before it was Reebok Drive. And this project is going to generate anywhere from $2.3 to $2.7 million in new property taxes to the town. And depending on the type of equipment that goes in these warehouses, conveying systems, racking systems, forklifts, computer systems, do all that, could generate personal property tax in the amount of $1.5 million as well. So again, we're getting things done. We're bringing a project in that went through, was very, very much vetted by the planning board, by the zoning board, Board of Health, Conservation.
Okay, now this video, notice that this was in the fall of 2024, He said, this logistics park alone will generate 2.7 in property taxes, plus up to 1.5 million in personal property taxes. This represents $4.2 million of new revenue, year over year new revenue, from that logistics park project alone. So this is one of your leaders that was just reelected who knew in October 2024, before they saddled you with another third debt exclusion, how much revenue was coming into this town. This does not include the over $1 million of new revenue to be generated due to the construction article passed in November 2024 special town meeting, collecting property taxes on projects that have reached 50% completion, or the other new commercial and residential growth going on in Stoughton, such as the expiring TIF agreement and the solar array revenue. The 50% build completion money begins being collected as early as July 1st this year. That's 2 weeks away from today.
Do a project that's going to bring somewhere to the area of $2.7 million in new revenue to the taxpayers of Stoughton that they don't have to pay. And I've said consistently, we should always try to work harder to reduce the need of new taxes. We'll fight inside, right, Lisa? Yes. We'll fight inside as to how that money should be spent, but we all agree that the idea is new revenue. When you add personal property taxes into this that might go into the building, we could be looking at another $1 million. Who knows? But this is what it's all about.
Okay, so that was a little funny because I was at that presentation and you heard him say my name. We can fight about how to spend it. But you notice how this is what I take objection to. When he says, all this revenue is meant to prevent us taxpayers from having to pay extra taxes, and yet he didn't make sure that this revenue went to that new South School, which it absolutely, as I previously stated, could have gone to the new school without the budget cuts that everybody was scaring everybody with. It's just not right. So now, in this next video, you're gonna hear our former assessor. She was the assessor at the time, and it's gonna go for 5 minutes, but it's very important for you, the audience, to understand how revenue is generated. So we're gonna play that for you now.
Ms. Julie Castadiaz, Director of Assessing for the Town of Stoughton. I would like to make a brief statement concerning the fiscal year 2025 tax rate classification. First, I would like to thank the entire staff of the Assessor's Office for their support and assistance throughout the year. With me today, I have the Board of Assessors, Stan Zoll, Janet Teal, and our consulting assessor, Deborah Seccarini. The purpose of this hearing is to establish the proportion of tax levy raised by the residential and commercial class of property, also known as the factor. This hearing is required under Mass Gen Laws, Chapter 40, Section 56. The assessed values for fiscal year 2025 represent an estimate market value as of July 1st, 2024. Utilizing verified sales data from calendar year 2023. Assessments represent 100% of market value required by Mass Gen laws. The Department of Revenue has certified the real and personal property values for the town as well as the new growth. The assessor is required to fairly assess 11,156 parcels, 10,437 are residential parcels, 805 are commercial and industrial parcels, 438 are personal property accounts. The total taxable value of all real and personal property is $6,245,980,512, which is a 6.4% increase from fiscal year 2024 due to market trends. This year, the town added a total of $1,705,774 in growth for residential, commercial, and industrial. Primarily in commercial, as there were major improvements to several of our largest taxpayers, as well as several TIFs, tax incentive funding contracts, that ended their terms. The end of these TIFs accounted for about half of the new growth at $885,000. Also, we had large personal property utility projects that have been completed, which we get to enjoy the new growth for this year. The purpose of tonight's tax rate classification hearing is to adopt a residential factor. The Select Board will decide on how much of the tax levy the owners will share and how much of the tax levy the owners of commercial, industrial, and personal property will share. This decision is what creates two tax rates or a split tax rate in the town of Stoughton. The split tax rate in the town of Stoughton taxes commercial, industrial, and personal property at a higher rate than the residential properties. If there was no shift, there would be one rate for the entire town, which would be $13.85. Last year, the Select Board voted to set the shift factor at a split tax rate of 1.48. The board members will follow up with their recommendations. Thank you all, and I'd like to just review a few things in the packet. Did you all have a chance to review the packets, or would you like me?
Which packet? This one or this one?
It's I made them customized. So yes. So if you'd like, I'll go through briefly the pages.
Absolutely.
Okay. So if you want to just go to page 4, this is just an overview of key value changes. It has the breakdown of the percentage of valuations that we're doing from FY24 to FY25. So it's just a class breakdown. Now on page 5, we have the single family value, which is raised by 5.8%, and it's highlighted right at the top. I just wanted to point out that commercial is at 9.3%. And the industrial was raised at 6.9%. But our major changes came with the multi-use of commercial at 29.2% and the multi-use of industrial at 315%. And that included a large new solar array, which was on an industrial property. On page 6, we just have the new growth. It shows the difference throughout the years. Why is there such a large difference this year? With residential, we had 9 new homes built, valued over $1 million. Some were custom built. We have commercial and personal property with several major utility projects that were completed. And as I mentioned, we had TIFs that were completed adding about half of the new growth at 880,000.
So you can see the assessor, unfortunately, she's no longer our assessor. We just got her. I don't even think she lasted a year. That's another show, another subject. But she did explain to you that there's a massive amount of just talking about the taxpayers. I'm not even talking about the industrial or commercial assessed values, okay? But people try to convince you to do capital projects and tell you it's going to increase your property values. What they're really telling you is you will be paying more in taxes. And as you can see, you heard the rates 5-point-something% going up from just 1 year alone. This is when you have a surge of population into that affects the supply. When the supply of homes is reduced because of an increase in town, that's going to increase prices, which then increases your cost, your property taxes. I just want people to understand that. And I want you to also understand from that video is that presentation happens every single year because the tax rate changes every single year. And as the select board members listen to this presentation or a presentation like it every year and determine the tax rates, and it can go up or down. So from the previous year it went down, but because all the assessed values went up, it still cost you more tax dollars. So I just want to give people that background there. Okay, and so we're going to see one more video. Also, notice how this is all in the fall, and it is before the select board passed the budget, the 2026 budget. So all this information was known before they passed the budget and before the town leadership campaigned for 9 months to you, disingenuously saying, if we didn't pass the latest debt exclusion, we were going to have to make budget cuts. So as you can see, that is disinformation. That's an outright lie. So here we go for the last clip.
Year 2025 looks like an absolutely remarkable year for new growth in Stoughton. I'm on the DOR website right now, and it seems like other municipalities are seeing a downward trend in new growth, like a significant drop in new growth. Stoughton seems to be an outlier where we're doing unusually well compared to other municipalities. And I'm wondering, I apologize if you've already said this, to what can that be attributed? It seems like it's mostly in commercial and industrial, especially industrial, as a percent increase, sure. But commercial maybe as a total amount. Yeah, go ahead.
So a majority did come from the TIFs ending this year. So we were able to capture that real value and accept the true dollars on that. And we also had some major projects, some major utility projects that added to our personal property. Major solar arrays that went on industrial buildings. So that was under, on page 5, that commercial multi-use industrial, that went up 315%. So just collecting all of that data, that's really helped to make us that outlier in a good way.
Yeah, in a very good way. And it's just, we're sort of, we've benefited from a lot of good news lately, financial good news for Stoughton. So this was really promising to see. I mean, there's a lot of projects that people have been working on for a long time. I think we're actually seeing some of the benefits of those, and we'll continue to see the benefits of it in the coming years. And so, this is just excellent news, and really appreciate the work you're doing.
Okay, so what he was about to say is town meeting just voted to approve charging new construction to pull in the revenue at the 50%. I know that was cut off, but I just wanted you to know what he was about to say. So they already know, as of, what was that, in November, before they approved the budget and before they asked you, as I just said, to do another debt exclusion, how much money. So what I'm showing you with all these clips is bringing you the receipts that, in fact, there is abundant revenue in Stoughton that could have paid for that school. Okay, so as you can see, there is an abundance of revenue in Stoughton, and yet in the frequently asked questions section of the elementary school building independent working group, their report, this group was meant to inform you, the public, but would not allow you to watch the process on SMAC. It was a completely non-transparent, secretive, and a complete rubber stamping of the project. That being said, on page 20, in the first paragraph of that report, we find the following. Based on the review that Hilltop Securities, the town's debt financial advisor, conducted of Stoughton's debt profile on April 30th, 2024, this project will cost approximately, meaning the South School project, $4 million per year and would remain level at this amount over the 30-year note. Now, that same paragraph continues to read, if this project were to be paid through the debt service in the annual town budget, that amount would reduce the revenue available for personnel. Example, police, firefighters, teachers, and services, visiting nurses, services, recreation offering, programs for seniors and veterans. The previous paragraph is a combined statement from our debt financial advisor and the false declaration of the mysterious working group. It is so disingenuous, it defies common decency. This combination is yet another example of the rubber stamping and scare tactics our leadership and hand-picked fellow citizens are willing to go along with at your expense. This can be stopped. Email info@stoughtonnomoretachhikes.com to find out how. To continue with the inside the budget debt discussion, let's take a peek at the chair of our select board's writings. We have Mr. Cavey's Facebook post on November 2024. And I'm just going to read this here. It says, the town of Stoughton is in very good financial shape. It's getting better every year. Steve Cavey is responding to a resident. I just used her initials because I just want to respect her privacy. So she says, Mr. Cavey says to her, debt isn't the only or even the main concern regarding financial health for a municipality. However, it's just another expense, debt service. Our revenues outpace our expenses, and revenues in this case are not only tax revenues. I don't even know what he means by that. By all objective financial measure, Stoughton is doing great. So I just want to take up a couple of things there in that sentence alone. Okay? Debt has to be managed. Okay? For him to say it's just a piece, we need comprehensive. That's why I keep calling for comprehensive financial policies. Nothing should be looked at myopically. It needs to all be looked at in a comprehensive package so we can make complete, wise decisions. I'm just saying. Okay, so Dave Laurie then says to Steve Cavey in this same series of posting, he says, if money is plentiful, and I agree revenues are coming in faster than ever, why does the town need an additional taxes to pay for debt service? Isn't this at the heart of the debt question? It goes on, and then he says, do you agree that the past investment which cause the extra money to flow into the general fund, benefits the taxpayers if it leads to override avoidance. So that's one Facebook post. Now, on Stoughton News on November 27 of 2024, Mr. Cavey says, the Stoughton Select Board met last night, 11/26/24, to hold the annual tax classification hearing. That's the video I just showed you a moment ago. The result of our vote is a decrease in the residential tax rate, okay, and he goes on to explain the numbers, in a decrease in the commercial, okay. He says the average residential property value in Stoughton increased to $550,731. And he's going on to explain about a property with that valuation would see a modest increase. I'm pretty sure everyone who's looking at their tax bill is not saying they've got a modest tax increase. As the graph I showed you earlier, our taxes are growing at 8 times our incomes or people's income, and that's the median income. So it's even worse for people who don't make that $104,000+. So he goes on to say, one item I'd like to call out specifically is the new growth we have seen this year. New growth refers to additional tax revenue from construction and property improvements. He says for the past 5 years, we have seen an average new growth of $839,392. He says last year, new growth was $870,000+. He says in fiscal 25, the current year, we have more than doubled the average by bringing in $1,705,000+ in new growth. Though some of that was residential, the majority was commercial and industrial growth, as explained in the assessors video I showed you. We expect to see similar new growth going forward. So there you have it. He knows in November that that's going to be year-over-year revenue, okay? The expansion of our commercial and industrial tax base will continue to alleviate the pressure on the residential tax base. So what did they need the debt exclusion for? They didn't. Okay. So a resident or a poster says she doesn't understand if the tax rate is being decreased, why is there an increase of 102 and change? Am I missing something? And this is a good question that she's asked for people who don't know. And the answer is because even though and it can be manipulated when those tax rates go either up or down, and in this case it's going down, but because of the assessed values of the home is exponentially increasing, you heard it in the assessed video, it went from at the beginning of this project to the average, again, residential home was at 421 something thousand, and then it was up to, let's just say 550,000. So even if the rate's going down, but the assessed values are going up, you could still have that tax increase. Okay, now, there was another poster here who says, how is the town going to fund the retirement pensions for all the town employees they had and given raises to? When the current group retires, they will be receiving hefty salaries for long, hopefully, lives, because municipal employees, when they retire, get for the rest of their life 80% of their pay. So we will be paying double for town positions. So once they go, and then we're potentially we will be replacing these employees. The next town, and so he goes on. So basically he's making the point the taxpayers are getting crushed, and I agree with that. And then Stephen Cavey answers another poster whose initials is DS for something new to, now this I took offense to. His sarcastic response to a poster. DS, for something new to come in, something else has to go out. Look through the town budget and let us know where you think we can cut. I believe you need to find around $4 million. So I just can't even sometimes, okay? The $4 million he's talking about is to cover the cost of, mind you, the Taj Mahal designed school. And I have already shown you previously, just from the logistics project alone, we would cover that. Plus, don't forget all the other new growth. So he's being sarcastic to this poster, you know, indicating there's going to need to be budget cuts. It is so disingenuous. Again, it defies common decency. And this is the chair of the select board. So please keep that in mind when he's up for re-election coming up in a couple of years. And then he goes on to more sarcastically say, I'm open to suggestions. We'll be voting on next year's budget in December. So please pass along your recommendations soon, as though it's not his job to be going through the budget. I don't see anything. If I don't see anything from you, I'll assume you've come to the same conclusion many of us have. No project that size can be funded inside the budget, but maybe we'll learn something new, which is always a good thing. Hopefully this show has taught him something new. I just can't with the sarcasm and the complete false presentation he's putting forth to the public to shove another debt exclusion on the backs of the taxpayers. I have no tolerance for that, I'm sorry. So, as you can see, inside debt is definitely more than just another expense. It needs to be managed. The inside debt, according to many expert municipal advisors, should be between 4 and 10%, depending on the size of the community. Anything below 4% puts us in a danger zone, and anything above 10% puts the town in a danger zone. Larger communities, such as ours, should be higher than a smaller community. The Mass Municipal Association on 6/3/2025 recommended debt percent inside the budget.
Policy approach do you take to allocate capital expenditures between exempt and non-exempt status?
Yeah, I just dovetail what Theo said. I mean, I know in some communities, any sizable capital project is done via debt exclusion. And I know other places where they don't do debt exclusions. And that's that goes back to some of the things Theo said about developing policies that fit your community. There's not one blanket set of recommendations that work for every single community. In my town hall days for capital, we basically said that we were going to dedicate a certain amount of revenue. It was like 6% of total revenue for capital being defined as debt service and pay as you go. Right. So we had a very strict, very formal, we showed it every year that we were complying with it. But some of the smaller communities, can't do a project without a debt exclusion. So I think that's where the long-term modeling comes in. Hey, what does a $30 million project mean financed over 30 years? Well, people can't do that in their head. So you got to model that out as to what does that mean coming out of my expenditure base every single year, and can we afford that? So there's no perfect answer. I know there's another question here about overall. Where is it? Overall reserve recommendation, as a percent. Again, you can look at Moody's, S&P, Fitch. They'll all tell you that you should have unassigned fund balance of at least 10%. Unassigned fund balance is a starting point of free cash. So make an argument that free cash should be somewhere between 7.5% and 10% of your budget. And then you got stabilization fund. If you look at those two things together, I would say somewhere between 10 and 7.5 to 10, 12% is really where you need to be, depending upon the size of your community. And again, to echo what Theo said, the smaller the community, the larger that percent number is probably going to be, just because of simple math.
So I just want to point out a couple of things that he said that's outside the debt conversation as well as the debt conversation. Notice how he talked about policy, and notice how he was talking about the percentages of the overall budget. I have been asking for going on 2 years now for our select board to do their job and get policies in place. Steve Cavey promised me over a year and a half ago that this year we would see policies, okay? It is very important, and it is part of having the complete picture so that we can make informed decisions on how we want to spend our money. I have already shown you earlier how we have actually have enough revenue to have avoided that debt exclusion. So now, to go back to Sean's point about the debt, Sean's larger communities policy for inside debt is at 6%. Notice that's in between the 4 and 10%. Stoughton has steadily decreased to 2.2% per our finance director noted at the March 2025 Finance Committee meeting. This means our tax dollars meant to fund large capital projects are being squandered and absorbed in other areas of the budget, with excessive budget increases beyond inflation causing our budget to explode year over year. The debt needs to be managed both inside and outside the budget. Inside debt is supposed to pay for capital projects, and outside the budget debt is debt exclusion tax increases for capital projects. Stoughton's Select Board is the policy-making authority. They need to implement basic fiscal policies to protect you, the taxpayer, against excessive spending and taxation. There is no shortage of reputable organizations who have presented the financial gold standards for municipal governments to follow. You just saw one on the previous clip. Stoughton residents have been promised a written set of financial policies from the Select Board through the current town manager since September 2024, and even before their time. 9 months later, and still we have no financial policies as described by Sean. This is entirely unacceptable. Two of the such advocates for prudent fiscal management come from the guidance of DLS Financial Management Resources. That's the FMRB. That was from the clip you just saw is posted. It's called the MMA webinar, Municipal Finances Policy. It was presented on June 3rd this year, and it's posted on News of Stoughton Facebook page within the Files tab. And again, that's News of Stoughton. Another entity is Government Finance Officers Association, which provides an annual independent review and critique of a municipality's budget documents. They are the gold standard promoting best practices in public budgeting, focusing on information, transparency, and accountability. And that was presented on November 2nd, 2024 at the Association of Town Finance Committees. This was the policies that what I call censorship, town meeting prevented me from showing you the gold standard of that Government Finance Officers Association. But it is, in fact, a gold standard. We cannot have leadership, whether they're town meeting reps, in collusion with select board members, preventing you, the public, from gaining the knowledge you need to hold them accountable. I'm just saying. Okay, so embracing comprehensive financial practices would again not only protect you against overspending and taxation, but it would set a framework for debt management, capital planning, savings, forecasting, cash management and investing, and communication with you, the taxpayer, truthful, informative communication. Comprehensive financial policies would reduce the need or amount of debt-excluded taxation. The goal is to cost effectively manage your money to give you the best services at efficient cost, to include complete projects with fully transparent communication on all available choices. You were not shown all the available choices. Speaking of upcoming choices, let's talk about debt management. I'm going to show you, yes, this spreadsheet here. Okay, as you can see on this Excel spreadsheet, we've seen before on a previous episode. I go into detail on it in a previous episode. But in general, for our purposes here, is showing you that even right now, we as a community have a choice to make whether we want to take debt out for 20 years or do we want to take it out at the proposed 30 years. The significant number to notice on this chart is on the right side where it says it would cost over $18 million more in interest alone if we choose the 30-year plan. And if we choose just for full informative information, if you choose the 30-year plan, our annual taxes will be less than should we choose the 20-year plan. But in the big scheme of things, we will be paying $18 million more than we really should be if we were to choose the lower. So this is a choice we have to make. So that being said, if you compare the $4.2 million projected revenue for logistics park alone to the $3.9 million expense noted here, you have over $200,000 left on the logistics park project alone. This is before the millions of revenue from the expiring TIF agreements, the solar array project, and the money grab on the 50% completed construction. These are the type of choices that requires public discussion, not private secret meetings. Choices need to be made, and they need to reward the taxpayer, not endlessly supporting an exploding budget. Note the difference between, there's also a difference between a 4.25% interest rate and a 4.5% interest rate. That's the 18 million I was discussing a moment ago. So it's now time to start connecting the dots. There you go. We need to connect the dots, and it's easier to connect the dots when you have financial policies in place, you're managing your debt, and you're not allowing your town leadership to run away with all your expanded tax revenue base that should be benefiting you, the taxpayer. So thank you for watching another episode of Lioness and You on the Watch. You have a great day now. See you next time.